And I'm going to continue because you will be getting this. So again, my apologies. Zoom has really thrown me off today with all of this newness. So let me start sharing my screen again. Let me go back to share. And we're going to pick up right where we left off. So again, I was just lost in a sea of paperwork and just processes that I did not know. But here's what I did know. I had a vision for what I wanted, as I'm sure many of you do. You know what you want, you just don't know how to get there. Just like your families and your children. They know what they want, but they just might not know how to get there. So I really had to start from scratch, seriously. So this is what I lacked, and this is what I had. What I lacked, no curriculum, no textbooks, nothing. No money, of course. I mean, there was no money for anything. So I really had to kind of beg, borrow, and steal. I'm going to teach you how to do that today. And I had no program in my school. But this is what I did have. So remember, just like with our kids, we have to focus on the assets. Give yourselves that grace as well. Say, you know what? There's a lot that I don't have, but there's a lot that I do. I need to focus on my assets and what I know I can do and accomplish today. So I had a community of untapped resources. I'll admit I live in a very large community, but in my area of my district, there wasn't a lot of support. I would have to travel, a half an hour. I mean, my district office is a good 40 minutes away from me. It's a very, very large district. So while there's a lot of resources, everything is very, very, very spread out. I had a ton of ideas and a vision. I also had people to seek out as mentors. Now, you might be saying to yourself, but I don't have anybody. There were people who I kind of made my mentors, whether they wanted to be or not. I just opened up my mouth and asked, because I had so many questions. I had questions on top of questions on top of questions. I really just was lost at sea. And I'm going to let someone else in. There we go. And you want to stick again today. Come on, new Zoom. There we go. So there are roadblocks, okay? So what I did was I looked at what I knew I had to overcome, what my families have to overcome. And when I do workshops like this, I always say, you need to eliminate the roadblocks. Once you can clear those roadblocks, things will become a lot easier. So number one, things need to be accessible in, for example, heritage language. I'll give you another example. Before I became the coordinator, and this does happen in many schools, a lot of the parent meetings are during the day. I'm a working parent. I could never go. My multilingual learner families, not only could they not go, they didn't even know about it in the first place. It has to be accessible at a time when it is convenient. We always did. When I came on board, I said, we're doing them in the evenings. An hour. We're going to do call outs. We're going to post signs. We're going to make flyers. I'm going to show you what some of these look like. Any means of communication necessary, but we're going to make it accessible. It also has to be available. So what I mean by that is I'm going to kind of paint you a picture of how my feeder schools are laid out. So I live along this road called Military Trail, or my school is, and we call it the Military Trail Corridor. So there's Jupiter High, the police station, the library, and right behind the library is Jupiter L. So the middle school and the elementary, they're all centrally located, not my school. My school is a good 1.5 miles down the road, which isn't that far, but living in Florida, when you're pushing the baby stroller at noon in 105-degree heat, in the Florida sun, that's a lot on a parent who actually had to miss a day of work to come. So things weren't always available. So then what I started to do was I started to partner with organizations that were more in walking distance. I'm going to show you what one of those are. Don't worry if you don't have something that close. It could be a library. Your public library might have a meeting space. A lot of them do. Hey, can I please use the space for 1 hour? Because this is where our families can meet and walk and get to, no matter what time of night. Because if I had these meetings in the evening like I wanted, I also had to be very conscious that I did not want my parents without transportation, because I don't have public transit where I live. They either drive or they walk or they bicycle. A lot of them will bicycle. I have to make it available, but I also have to make it approachable. And what I mean by that is it has to be a welcoming and inclusive environment. It has to be a place where they feel safe. We talked about that. That's what you put in the chat. I said, this needs to be a safe place. They need to feel welcomed. So when they come in this building and they're walking around saying, where's the media center? Where's the meet? I need to have signs with arrows all over so that they know exactly where to go, because a lot of the families did not have the language to be even able to ask someone. And just to give you a little bit of background about my school's demographic, 95% of my students were from Guatemala. I did have many who spoke Mayan languages. Many.
Yes, I see.
Well, I'm going to mute. I'm going to ask to mute. So we had many parents who needed this additional support, because these safe places, they need to be approachable, accessible, available, approachable, the 3 A's. Just always remember that. It has to be accessible, available, and approachable. And so those were the roadblocks that I really, really made a commitment to eliminating, because once I eliminated those roadblocks, it became a lot easier to get those parents on board. I'm using my mouse and my keyboard. Let's see there we go. So we have this center in my school called, in my neighborhood called El Sol. El Sol is a neighborhood resource center. It is very unique. It's a one-of-a-kind type of environment. They do parenting classes. It's a resource center for day workers. They teach English there. Now, you might say, well, that works for you, Jody, but I don't have something like that. But again, El Sol is right across the street from the local library, and every town has a local library. So what I did was I went to El Sol and I said, hey, can we use your space one night? Because it's really, really hard for my parents to get to our school. It's, so far down the road. If it's raining, they won't come. If it's really hot, if it's dark, they don't feel safe. Can we use your space? Sure. All I did was ask. I just walked in and said, hey, can we partner with you? Because these are your families who are going. It was a win-win. The folks at El Sol loved the idea just as much as we at Jupiter Middle did, because it got their families in. They said, now these families will know about what we have to offer. Maybe on the way out, they'll pick up a pamphlet and find that they can take a sewing class or a painting class or an English class or a cooking class or a parenting class. They were trying to get families in as well. So we hit them from both ends, and it really made the difference. And I have a lot of pictures of my experiences, and this is how I learned about it in the first place. I didn't just magically come up with this idea. I cannot claim credit for probably 90% of what I'm telling you about today. Years ago, I had been asked by the high school to sit on a panel to learn about university admissions, financial aid, becas, scholarships. First thing I thought was, why are they asking me? I'm at a middle school. Show up, just go. I said, okay, I'll go. I'm at the middle school. Jody, we want you there as a member of the education community. Okay, why not? They asked me, I made it a point to show up. That's how I made connections with a lot of community partners. I learned how accommodating El Sol is. I thought, really, I can have meetings here, really? They said, of course you can. We're a community member. That's how I learned it, by just showing up one night and talking to people. So you do need to put yourself out there. Just show up. So how do we create these welcoming and inclusive schools? Well, it's kind of a given that we have family meetings presented in multiple languages. We want this equitable access. That's a given. And I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir and that a lot of you already know this. But we started doing things a little differently. It wasn't just, hey, we're going to have a parent night and kind of, talk about stuff and we'll bring in pizza. We really started targeting certain things that we wanted to address. So, for example, we started talking about plans for high school and beyond. We talked about choice programs. We started really kind of giving parents an agenda so they didn't think it was just another parent meeting. They were empowered because they knew exactly what they were going to find out. I invited anyone and everyone to come too. I brought in people from our healthcare district to talk about the importance of nutrition. I'm going to show you some pictures of some of the guests that I invited in, because it made it a fully comprehensive evening for them rather than just the school people talking about grades. So I met with, for example, local government agencies and asked them to meet with students and families. This is Detective Ulysses Munoz, and he actually works for the school district. He is a multilingual. I met him at the elementary school at one of their parent meetings, and he was doing this whole presentation on drug awareness and alcohol abuse, and he would do it in both languages. And I said, wow. I said, will you come to my school? He goes, sure, why not? You're going to hear that a lot today. A lot of the answers I got were, sure, why not? And the other answer that I got a lot of was, we've been hoping, this is our job. We want to serve the community. Nobody ever asks us. Nobody's even asking them to do this. So here he is at a parent meeting. But then I said, I'd love for you to, really reach the kids, because some of the parents, they come without the kids. They're always invited, but yeah, the kid wants to stay home. They've been in school all day, or they have soccer practice or something else going on. So I said, will you come during the day and come to my classroom instead? Sure, why not? And so they came, and so he came to that also. And he started talking about careers and how if they just continue their education and learn English, that they can become a police officer too. And it really made the difference because it empowered these children to show them what they could be. And that's what my program is all about. They don't even know that they could have this dream, that they're entitled to having these dreams. That's what our job is, to show them the dream that they can have. So another thing that I did was to have local organizations help me out with the cash. I'm not going to lie. I mean, some of our activities are expensive. So this is my team with some of our girls who were graciously given the money to go to the 8th grade dance. Now, before COVID, this thing was like a mini prom. I mean, the hair and the nails and the gown. This thing was on, but it was expensive. My multilingual learners and a lot of other kids in my school, they could never go. They couldn't even afford the ticket alone was $65 for an 8th grade dance. So what I did was there was a local church around the corner. Now, I am not a religious person. I am not affiliated with this church, but I had heard through the grapevine that they did a lot of things with local schools, and my school is maybe a half a mile away. I picked up the phone, which I'm going to tell you, it is not my usual thing to go picking up the phone. And I said, I'm from Jupiter Middle. I'm the ESOL coordinator. This is what I would like. Sure, why not? How much do you need? find out so many organizations, this is what they want to do. They want to support their community through schools. How do I know? They've told me. But their roadblock is we never know who to contact. We don't know the person at the, they don't know the process. So I said, you can go through me for multilingual learners. So we were able to fund, in the first year we did, we funded the girls. And then the year after, I think we picked we picked 3 boys and 3 girls. It was a few $100s. And then they made a beautiful card that I hand delivered. I dropped off to the church, signed by all the kids, thanking them for allowing them to go to the dance, because they want to feel included too. You know, an 8th grade dance or any school event, that's a big deal to a kid. That's a huge deal. It might not seem like a big deal to us as adults, but that was huge that they all got to go. And it really, really empowered them because they felt included. They felt like a member of their school, a member of the community. They wanted to get dressed up just like all the other kids in their classes. They wanted to be able to go to school on that Monday and talk about the dance and all the fun they had, rather than just sitting there and having to listen to all the other kids talk about what an awesome night it was. That's power. And it was so easy. I was baffled about how easy it was. I said, oh my gosh, I just had to pick up the phone. And I never thought to do this. This was all new for me. This was all year 1. So how do we begin to bridge these worlds of the community, of our families? How do we cement everything together? So we form these potential partnerships through those local community leaders, through local businesses, government agencies, the religious organizations, your church, your synagogue, your mosque. They are, I can guarantee so many of them are so willing to help because this is their community. You can also partner with community and state colleges. I'm going to show you how I did just that. And also, you can reach out to your school district vendors. And I'm going to show you what Vista Higher Learning did. I do want to add that, you know, make sure that when you reach out to vendors that it's okay to do so. But I'll tell you, speaking from the other side of it now, from the other world, a lot of vendors, this is what they do. We form these strategic partnerships because these are our communities that we're serving. And I told you I could not do it alone. This is my community. This is my community, the Jupiter L team. This is our welcome center. A lot of communities have a welcome center. We actually, I will say we are very fortunate. My school district has an entire Mayan team of facilitators. They will facilitate in Papti, Kanhoval, Quiche. This is our Mayan team. We have our community leaders. I'm going to talk about Palm Beach State in just a moment. This is my new family. Lauren is included. Lauren's right there. This is my team at my middle school, and this is the Jupiter High ESOL team. We all communicated with each other because we all needed each other. We all need people, and that's what I was talking about at the very beginning. We all need someone. I just had a big wealth really because I just opened up my mouth. I just said, I need help. What can you do? And I'm going to tell you how I phrased certain things to be able to get that help. Okay. So this is what Vista did. Again, ask, is your school or your district allowing you to connect with them? Definitely find that out. But then you start asking for donations. Ask for the swag because these kids need school supplies. At least mine did. I'm going to show you how I got that also. Paper, pens, and if it has whatever company's logo, it could be Vista, it could be any other vendor, then it's circulating. The paper, the pens, all the cool stuff, the backpacks. I can guarantee vendors will definitely help you. You just have to make sure that you can ask. And so this is what we are helping. This was, it was actually a Facebook message that I got from someone who I worked in the district with, my friend Allie. She said, I'm just going to move my camera over so I can read it. She said, hey, Jody, I want to incorporate the love and preservation of our Latin American countries through a Latin American traveling suitcase project. I'm wondering if Vista can help partner with me to make this project a reality for our Palm Beach County schools. So I replied back to her, I said, what exactly are you looking for? I'm wondering if Vista has books they are willing to donate so I can create lesson plans that go along with these to provide as part of the suitcases. By the way, this is part of University of Florida's Latin American Studies program, where you actually get a suitcase filled with all of these pieces that represent all of these countries, and it's called the Traveling Suitcase Project. So she told me exactly what she wanted, and she told me exactly why she wanted it. When I reached out to the church, I told them what I wanted it for, and exactly how much I needed. So I want to make that that point to you. If you need money, as I'm sure we all do, have specific amounts. So if you reach out to someone, hey, is there a way that you could donate $212.39 so that we can purchase blah, blah, blah for our dinner for our multilingual learner families for this particular night. And if you would like to come and join us and meet some of those families, please come. So have the specifics, because if you just say, hey, I'd like some money, the first thing they're going to say is, well, are you looking for $50 or $500 or $5,000? Have the specifics, and it makes it a lot easier for them. And if it's easier for them, they're more likely to say yes. I learned all this through trial and error. I'm telling you, I knew nothing about this. When I tell you how new I was, seriously, because it only takes one to begin this journey. So I'm really proud of this story. This was either my naivete or my idealism or my stupidity. So I'm at a North Palm Beach Chamber Chamber of Commerce meeting, and I just happened to be sitting next to the provost at the time at Palm Beach State College. It is our local state college. It used to be a community college. And he's talking, and first thing out of my mouth, well, what do you do for multilingual learners? And he's kind of hemming and hawing, and he talks about how 6-year-olds, first graders, go on a great little tour. Just anyone, any 6-year-old, they bring the kids in. And I thought, they're 6. What are they really getting out of this at this point? Now, our high schools bring 10th graders. Now, remember, 10th grade, they're already halfway through high school. They didn't know maybe I should have registered for a more elevated math class or taken that academic elective. 10th grade, at least in my mind, is too late. So I said, well, I have 8th grade. I mean, I have middle schoolers, but my 8th graders need to be exposed to this before they start high school and before they start registering for, their 5th PE class. Maybe they should take something that is more academically inclined so that they maybe could be at Palm Beach State College when they graduate high school. So what I want to show you now is, let me escape out of this. You are just sticking. So I want to show you a set of slides so you understand what the program is. And I'm going to tell you the evolution of these slides too, because I didn't know this from the beginning. So I came up with this plan. We're going to take our 8th graders on a tour of the state college. Great. But the parents really, really had to be, we had to get the buy-in of the parents. They really had to be sold on it. You're going to take my child off campus. I have a lot of undocumented kids, by the way. You're going to take my child off campus to where? They had never heard of Palm Beach State College. If I said, well, it's on PJ Boulevard, a lot of them did not know that either because they didn't drive. They didn't go that far. These are little things that I learned, but they knew the huge mall that's right across the street. I said, it's right across the street from the Gardens Mall. And they said, oh, it's so close. Connect with something that they know. Lesson number 1. I really didn't know these things. So after we went the first time, I put these slides together to show the parents so that they could see exactly where their children were going. And I'll tell you what this program was. These children, who, by the way, were all newcomers, they were introduced to engineering. All of the people who conducted the tour were multilingual learners, so they were also role models. And they did a lab on a campus. When I first partnered with Palm Beach State, I said to them, you have 2 parameters. That's it. Actually, 3. It has to be engaging. We need to do, a lab. It has to please have swag for us, just like anybody else. These kids want some swag, and it has to be facilitated in Spanish. That's it. Engaging, swag, and language. Because remember, available, accessible, approachable, the 3 A's. I said, whatever you want to do is fine. You have carte blanche. You could do whatever else you want to do. Those were the only 3 requirements. And man, did they ever take to task. Did they knocked it out of the park. So they did the robotics lab. This is actually my friend Oleg, who is not a native Spanish speaker, who actually learned Spanish just so that he could talk to my students. And then they did a biotech lab. So these are 8th graders, okay? They are doing a DNA extraction lab, which is what they do in 9th grade. So now I'm already preparing them for high school. Newcomers. Some of them are scythe. They're doing DNA extraction. Why? Accessible, available, approachable. I took away every barrier, and I'm going to show you what else I did to remove some of the other barriers. It was amazing to see. These kids were so engaged. And then what they got to do was they learned how to extract their DNA. A lot of them, they do it with the strawberry, which is what they do in the schools. Some of them do the cheek swab, which is what these kids did. I let them know, I let the parents know that they would have our staff members with them the entire time. Safety, remember? These parents didn't know. They always knew that we would be with them. That was a huge relief for the parents, and it was a way to remove a barrier. The fear factor, the unknown factor. What is this Palm Beach State? Where are you taking my kids? And so what these kids did, and this was all Palm Beach State. Again, I cannot claim credit for any of this. Palm Beach State got their plastic hollowed out crystals. The children put their DNA in there, and then they have a choice of 3 colors, amber, red, or blue. And they can put some dye in it, and they make a DNA necklace. I mean, how cool is that, right? So then they get to go back to school and show everyone what they did on a trip that was just for them. This is what we showed parents. We facilitated it in multi languages, and it removed that barrier. It removed the barrier. And it was written about we have a Spanish news channel. It's called Distrito Escolar. It was on the news, and we had a lot of press from our school district. And it was just an amazing presentation. So the reason I wanted to show you that was to show you that that was also year 1. And it's not to say, I'm just going to do it from the current slide. It's not to say that you have to do a whole lot. This might not be your wheelhouse. I had no idea. This was literally all new for me, because I'm going to show you some other pieces as to what I had to learn. So one thing to learn is that if you're thinking about doing this, and again, who do I call? Just like the church, who do we reach out to? Now the position at Palm Beach State College is called the Community Outreach Coordinator. So what I would do is, if you want to go to your local state college, or a local college, do a keyword outreach, community. They might call it something different, but I think they all have them. Someone who's pretty much in charge of connecting with the community. Community Outreach Coordinator. And here are just some more pictures. They got their swag. They got their backpacks that show that they went to a college too. That's power. These kids never thought about college. They didn't even know that this existed. And now we're giving them a dream that they didn't know that they could have. But this was new for me. I had never written a grant. I never planned a field trip. I'm kind of embarrassed to say that. 20 years in the classroom, I never planned a field trip myself. Seriously, I had to go through the training. I mean, I had no idea. I never even booked a bus before this. What did I do? I asked. I went to people in the front office. I said, look, I have no idea what I'm doing. They said, Jody, you need to download these forms. Step one is you need to, get this principal to sign off. You download, I just asked. Writing a grant. So I'm going to tell you exactly how much the trip cost. Again, it was a win-win for Palm Beach State College. They loved all the good PR they were getting. So that was nothing. I only had to pay for the bus. And I used a school bus. It was during school hours. We were back before lunch. So it was a completely free trip for the students. That was another big barrier that was easily eliminated. The parents did not have to worry about paying for anything. They were back in time for lunch. So the cost of the bus was $365. That's it. It was like a 2-hour trip. You had to pay for the mileage and, by the hour. That was it. Because the college wanted to do that. And my point is, even if it costs a little bit more in your community, community members want to do this stuff. I had no idea. So a very good quote by Lin-Manuel Miranda, lean into the things that scare you. That's worth doing because that's what makes you grow. And boy, did I ever in that first year. Again, I don't know if it was naivete or stupidity, but I just thought, let's go on a field trip. And it happened. And it happened every year that I was there. It became such an important part of their development and of their empowerment that we just made it happen. But there were other roadblocks, okay? So there were other roadblocks such as, we need to get our students ready for the next grade. Why are you bringing them to college? They're in 8th grade. What do you think about these comments? And feel free to unmute if you want. I could bring up the chat box, or if you just want to unmute yourselves. Why are you doing that? We need to get our students ready for the next grade. You shouldn't be focusing on taking these kids to college. You shouldn't be doing that. That is what I heard. And when I tell you who I heard it from, it'll blow your mind. Let's see if I could bring up the chat. Just trying to see what people have been writing. Did anyone want to contribute? What I heard this from members of my team. These were my peers. These were the ESOL teachers that I was teamed with at first. They were not on board. They went, but they weren't on board. Afterwards, after they saw the impact, the lasting impact that it had on the kids, then they changed their tune. But this was my own team. And I'm going to admit, it did put some doubt in me. It really kind of shook me at first because it was year one and I was scared and I was inexperienced and I didn't know what I was doing. But I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this because I wasn't doing it for me and I certainly wasn't doing it for them. I was doing it for our kids. That's why we do it in the first place. Oh, are you going to stick again? Come on. There we go. So I thought, challenge accepted. It is on. Okay. You want me to get the kids ready for high school? Done. You don't want me focusing on college right away? You got it. This was another project that I did. This is a really easy one because this you could do right in your school. So if you don't want me taking the kids to the college, I'll let the college come to us. So at my EL parent nights, I invited Palm Beach State to come. This is Wanda. She is a multilingual learner, multilingual professor at Palm Beach State. She came. This is the Spanish Honor Society. They needed community outreach as part of their basis for being in the Honor Society. So they tutored our kids. Free tutoring. And it also helped them practice their Spanish while the children were learning English. This is David Jenks. I have to give a shout out to David Jenks because David Jenks did not know one word in Spanish, but he practiced. And he always came to my parent nights because he wanted to meet the families. And he did his best to say hello, and he connected with them. So if you don't want me bringing them to the college, fine, I'll have the college come to us. Then what I also did was, regarding high school, I had the high school come and pre-register all our 8th grade multilingual learners for high school before the actual registration day. Because here's how it goes in my district. We have the guidance counselors and come from the high school, visit all the middle schools and talk about all the classes. And here's the big form you have to fill out. And you have to have your parents sign it. You have to have an email and you have to have a phone number and all the rest. Well, especially for my newcomers, they have no idea what's going on. They really didn't. It was a piece of paper that, by the way, is all in English. Okay. If they had headsets and somebody to translate during this very loud presentation in our so-called auditorium, which was for us the cafeteria, they maybe got a little bit of it, but they didn't understand what a lot of the classes were, a prerequisite. This was so new. I mean, it's daunting for any middle schooler. And then you have a newcomer who's been in the country for 2 weeks. So this is Elizabeth Arriero. At the time, she was the ESOL counselor at the high school. I said, Elizabeth, will you come please bring the forms and we're going to sit down with the kids. I'll put them in core classes because based on proficiency level, but let's get their electives done. You'll talk about Latinos in action. You'll talk about all the cool electives, anything that they want to know. And it's going to be just for them. We're going to have it in the media center. It'll be very quiet and they'll be able to ask questions in their language so that they can go to high school with confidence. Sure, why not? We started doing it every year. And so these students were already registered. She would make copies so that if they lost their form or whatnot, as kids tend to do, no matter who they are, she already had their forms filled out with their core classes and the electives that they wanted. Because here's what happens. If they don't pick an elective, you know what's going to happen. They're just going to be placed in one that chances are they won't like. And if they don't like it, they might not know how to change it. And if it's elective, they might not even be allowed to change it. And it might prevent them from being motivated to come to school. Quite honestly, they might not want to come to school if they don't like their schedule. I want these kids in school. We want them in school. We want them empowered to learn. So it started them off on the right foot. This is Nikki Viali. Nikki Viali works at the district in the choice program, and she will deliver a choice program presentation in Spanish to the parents, to the kids. She'll help them register. Do you know why a lot of multilingual learners are not in choice programs? Because they don't even know how to apply. It's not that they're not deserving. It's not that they're not talented or have the grades. It's half of them don't even know about it. So she comes, and when I said, Nikki, thank you so much, she said, enough, just like what the community was saying. Finally, someone asked. I've been wanting to do this. This is what my job is. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And no one asks. I just picked up the phone or I emailed her. I said, Nikki, do you think maybe you want to drive all the way up to Jupiter Middle and do a presentation? Sure, why not? These are what I call the cheap and easies. These are things that you could do right in your school. It doesn't take money. It doesn't take really a whole lot of planning. It's, hey, give me some dates when you can come and I'll have a flyer put out that the kids need to be excused from class and we'll go into the media center for an hour and a half. They won't miss their lunch. Super easy. We did all of this right at my school. This is empowering families. This is keeping kids in school. This is allowing families to be part of the process. That's what they need. So we took it a step further. We said, you know what? they probably have a lot of other questions about high school. Why don't we have our former JMS kids come back, who are now in high school, come back, and we'll call it strategies for success. Let the kids have their own forum. What's lunch like? Ooh, if I wear this crop top, am I going to get a detention for dress code? Yes, you will. How many tardies can you get before, you get a detention? All of this. We brought the kids in and they just asked. So former Jupiter Middle School students, that's empowering them. It was the peers leading the peers. We were out of it. The only thing that we did was we gave sample questions to spark the dialogue in case they needed it, in case they needed something to kind of get them going. That's it. So to create these pathways, we need to ensure that students are prepared for middle school with those routines and procedures. We need to ensure that the students have the tools for success, meaning like supplies. A lot of my kids did not have supplies. And ensure that students feel a sense of inclusiveness, that belonging. So here we did the strategies for success for middle school. We said, hey, wait a minute, why don't we take this further? We went down to the elementary school. We picked some of our middle school multilingual learners who were former Jupiter Elementary School students. Some were somewhere in, but they did a panel on this is what it's really like at Jupiter Middle School. We did it also during COVID, by the way. This was my office. I had to share an office. The fact that I even had an office was pretty remarkable, but we did it through COVID. We had just some instructions, basic instructions for the kids, not telling them what to say, but again, just some suggestions if they needed a little guidance on keeping the dialogue going. And once that first kid asked a question, it opened the floodgates. Again, very easy, available, approachable, accessible. It was right at the school. And you know what, especially during COVID, you can have those virtual things. You could do this over Zoom. The tools and supplies, this is my friend Kelly Betts. My kids went to a preschool, and that preschool would advertise in the summer about a supply drive for the elementary schools, the elementaries. And I said to myself, well, my kids need stuff too. Hey, Kelly, you think that maybe I can get in on that? Sure, why not? What do you need? Give me a list of what the kids need. Oh my God, really? Pens, pencils, colored pencils for social studies. They need red pens to do corrections in math, sticky notes, glue stick. My kids had backpacks. This every year. My car was filled. I had to bring everything in on a pallet. I had to have a pallet just to bring it in. I couldn't even store it all. That's my community. And I'm sure your community is the same. You just have to ask. Sure, why not? Just give me a list, Jody, and we'll get it to you. This is the trunk because my back seat was filled. You ask and they will deliver. They will deliver. Composition notebooks because the science teachers required it. My kids didn't need a thing. And if they ran out, they would just knock on my door and they would go shopping in my closet and take whatever they needed because that's how much I had. So today is the day. This is your call to action. Okay. This is your to-do list. You need to create a shared vision with your school and your community. Think about what you want and start small. I just said, I need these kids to be motivated to stay in school because they weren't staying in school. Be specific. Hi, I'm so-and-so with such and such school. We're having a dance and I would really love for our multilingual learners to be able to participate. Each ticket is $25. Would you be willing to maybe donate some money, maybe for 6 kids to get tickets or 8 kids to get tickets? Have a specific plan in mind so they know exactly what they need to do. Don't have the opposite end of the phone call saying, well, how much you're looking for. Give them your name, your contact information. So now you're their point of contact. Connect with those community partners. Spot those potential roadblocks and brainstorm solutions. Okay. Don't do this alone. And that way you can make their dreams your reality. It really is up to us to empower them. That's our job. And I don't mean job as in as a negative. I mean, that's my passion. And as I'm sure it is yours, because that's why you're here. You want to learn about simple things that you could do. So I did things outside of the community with Palm Beach State and El Sol. And if you feel like my community is very small and I don't have access to those things, then don't. Do things in your school. Say, you know what? I need to have a multilingual speaker come in and talk about careers. I need to have somebody from the high school come in and really talk to my kids so that they understand exactly what the expectations are as they're going into high school, middle school. Have the peers do it. And that's why I have to say that really is the why and how I got started, because we were losing so many kids in our community. They just were disappearing off the map. They were in school one day, gone the next, whether they went back to their home country, moved out of state, stayed home, whatever. I thought, these kids are disappearing. And then talking to the provost one day, he said, we don't have enough multilingual learners in a lot of our programs, like HVAC, paramedic, police officers. I said, what do you mean? Our whole community is filled with that. We have a ton of multilingual learners. And he said, yeah, but they're not in our programs. And so that's what really kind of sparked my vision, because this is another vision of mine that I never want to come to fruition. And I talk about this a lot with when I speak to people. I never want someone to be, heaven forbid, dying on the highway because they can't tell someone that they're having a heart attack because they can't communicate. I never want a life lost over something as approachable, accessible as language. We need those people in our community. So that's what really started me on my journey. Whatever your personal spark is, I'm sure it is something just as passionate, if not more. Okay. So, I encourage you to connect with me. Here is my email address. And on the first slide, I had all my social media. Some of you might already be connected with me. I really want to thank you so much for attending. I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm overwhelmed with gratitude that so many of you wanted to learn this story. It's really not my story. It's my kids' story. It's my family's story. And I just really want to thank you so much for that. I'm going to stop the recording